as far as places I've traveled through. I want to talk about back road. It's a highway, mind you. So you can do, I think, 70 miles, maybe 75 on it. And it's right on the Texas border. Right, here's Mexico, here's Texas over here. And I've had people tell me over the years, oh, you don't want to drive that route. Oh, there's hijackers and all that shit. Well, I never got hijacked. But it's Laredo up to Sanderson. And then basically you go north. Usually I've never actually went further than Sanderson. But Fort Stockton. And by the way, this is Freedom Phil. Like, subscribe. Let's get into it. And always turn up the video speed. Why do I say that? Because you'll be watching this at 1.75 and sub-whoring like usual. Appreciate any subs. You get these loads down in Laredo. And generally, if you get a load down, unload somewhere. I get some random pickups there. But, you get down there and Laredo's kind of an interesting case. Like, there's that part of it way onto the side. You take that little cutoff area to where you don't avoid Laredo proper. A lot of parking. And then you go out a little ways and you get to, generally there's parking on the side streets in a lot of the greater area. I've seen some unloads that were interesting too. I've seen it's true. Like, you're next door to Mexico, so you see a lot more, and it's Texas as well. So you see the at-home business washing. Like, there was this one place I was at. I'm sitting there from my truck, and there's these giant mesquite trees all over the place around me. And, it's right on the side. Tall grass, probably former cattle range or something like that. It was the time of year before it gets super dry. The rains can come through and just hammer Laredo occasionally. But I'm watching these guys wash out these trucks, and they just have basically a place where people would literally reuse some of the water. I don't know. They would have a tank. They caught it and somehow use it again. I don't fucking know how, but they did. And they go in there and just use a pressure washer. Now, I've seen many a times in the South where a guy will have a pickup truck, and he'll be like a mobile washing unit. He'll park somewhere at the edge of the truck stop, and he'll cover a space or two, and then he'll just be there. And the truck stop doesn't really mind it because they don't have a wash bay, and it brings more people in as long as the guy doesn't leave a mess. And the way they would get around the mess is what they would do is they'd have kind of like a little net there that would catch all the stuff coming out. So that's probably what the people in Laredo were doing. They just had a mess net. So you go in there with your pressure washer and all that stuff, And so after they do that, it's, you get it all clean because you need to get your stuff clean. There's been loads there I picked up of meat and chicken in Laredo it was grown over in Mexico, brought over here. And they're like, well, you need to be at this place this time. And so the ones I can't stand are the ones that are like, you can't park on site, but God forbid we actually have a load. By the way, with produce loads, I'm used to chicken and meat being something you got already in the freezer. No, not in Laredo. And that was one of those loads where basically when you pick up a load of meat there, the USDA inspector has to inspect it to make sure it's okay. So they bring it over to one house. They inspect it. Then they have it loaded from that house and then put into this house. And then they put it in there, and you're just like, you couldn't have this shit ready to go. And their attitude is, well, fuck you, gringo. I mean, we'll get it on your truck when we get it on your truck. Full well, mind you, if these people were being charged a fee for basically not having their act together to begin with, it'd be a whole different story. If they were, because a lot of people don't, the people that are loading your crap, they're not going to be the people that get charged with that $150 an hour past 2 hours. And that's what the companies, I don't know, probably charge more now for having a truck wait. I would get paid, anywhere from 15 to 20, maybe 30. And so here, the thing of it is that you get a load of chicken down there and it finally gets loaded and you're like, oh, fuck, I just want to get out of Laredo. And even worse, where that load of chicken was, you had to drive all the way to hell, some other place in town to find a cat scale. So even if you did manage to stay off the clock, no. And so it's one of those gigs where Yeah, I was always happy when I get a load over at the orange juice factory at Americold because it was a pretty steady load and I could ghost there. And there was a good side street parking. But once again, you were right on the fucking border. You're like looking right over and like, there it is, you know? And, it gets stupidly hot down there. Like it's 100, it's like 90 to 100 degrees or more. And it's during the summer. At that point, you're probably just idling your truck. Or if you have an AP, you're using that. So when you get done loading, you get some Z's, assuming that assuming you don't have time. Sometimes you just unhook the truck and then pull front of it. That way you can sleep without the bumping, waking you up. But yeah, man, you get done, you get finished your 10-hour break, and then you hit the freeway. You head north, I believe it was 35. And then you cut over on this road. Can't remember, was it 87 or something like that? But you cut over on this road that leads towards, Uvalde for a bit, and then you start heading towards Eagle Pass. And for a while there, you actually have like that kind of like Texas growth where it's like, mesquite, cattle grazing lands, occasionally some farms. And that's that way for a while. There's this one town that has a pilot near it. There's some beautiful buildings out there in them old towns, old brick buildings from back when settlement happened, and you're like, or the 50s or something. And you're like, wow, that's pretty nice. But once you get past a certain point, you are into the high desert waste. I shouldn't say high desert, you're into the waste. Kind of like if you ever driven down to, Cabo. If you ever went down to Cabo, actually drove the highway that zigzags like this down to the Baja, it's just like that. It's exactly like that. And I bet you could see salmon king foxes every fucking time of day if you knew where to go out there. By the way, one of the cutest little fucking animals you'll ever see. Little literally cat-size fox. Shows up when you're barbecuing in the middle of the night. You see a couple little green eyes out of the bushes and you're like, what the fuck is that? Oh my God, it's a fox. It's the coolest thing. Kind of like when you see burrow owls or owls in general, anything. Nighttime creatures are kind of cool because they're super hard to see, super hard to find, and they only show up at night. But you get out there and you're in this high waste, and occasionally you'll come to a city. And when you're navigating the cities, one thing I hate about Texas is like, just give us a fucking bypass. And a lot of Texas cities do. And you just bypass all the bullshit. The little loop around, thank fucking God. Because some of these cities, you're going through town in the middle of the night, and it's like, don't take this road, do take that road. Your GPS is lying to you, take this way, and and eventually you manage to get back onto the highway. You end up driving accidentally through a neighborhood, and you're like, okay, let's just turn this way and hope there's nothing in the way. Take the Peterbilt, the big ass truck, and you get back on the highway. But then there's this area out there in the middle of goddamn nowhere as you're going along, and eventually, you get to the Texas 90. And at that point, it's just waste. And occasionally, you will see, like fucking goats. There's nobody around, and there's this like little herd of goats. And then you'll have like a nanny with its kids and stuff, and then a few other goats around. And you're like, who the fuck are up with these goats? And like there's this area in the middle of nowhere, because you'll have like these old forgotten settlements, old stone buildings, and you'll have like a train yard. And every time I've gone through that area, there's always been a fucking ton of boxcars just sitting there. Like, is this like where they just store, 50 to 100 boxcars in the middle of nowhere till they need them? I don't know. I don't no fucking clue. Maybe those are the ones they're going to tear apart. I have no clue. But yeah, you get along there for a ways. And eventually, after a number of cities, you get to this place called Sanderson, Texas. And it is literally the little desert town. And there are a lot of similarities if you've ever been down to Mexico heading towards the Baja to a lot of parts of Texas. In fact, you would say the shittier parts of Texas, that part of Texas kind of reminds you of the better parts of the drive down to the Baja. I'm not saying that like all of Mexico's a shithole, but you see some fucking stuff that you're like, wow. You see a nice car, but then you'll see someone living in a cinder block crappy building and you're like, wow, Mexico. I mean, whatever. I'm not judging. Fuck, I'd live in practically anything. And fuck, before this remodel, this house was kind of a wild place. But yeah, Sanderson, I remember this one time. I was running out of time. I was trying to make it to Fort Stockton, but I knew I didn't have enough time to get there on my clock because, electronic logs. Otherwise, I could have, if it was paper logs, we can get anywhere we want. We can just calculate the miles. But I parked there, caught my Z's, and you kind of got a little apprehension because one, I couldn't get a spot at the truck stop. I looked at it, looked around, didn't look like there's any spaces. So I parked on the road right there as it goes up to Fort Stockton. Like 90 keeps going this way, I guess towards Big Bend National Park or something like that. And there's still a lot of highways I haven't driven. And basically it goes north, and I parked right there on the side. And you look at some of the old structures, and you're like, wow, once upon a time that was someone's home. In the early morning, though, like the desert generally does, there'll be just the tiniest amount of dew, not wetness, but you can just smell it. And then the sun will come up, and it'll be gone, and it's just enough for the cactuses and whatnot to get a meal off of. And I'm just like, I want to drive that again. I want to drive that route again. I want to see all the mesquite trees. I want to see the high desert like that. Weird cactuses. Some of the cactuses have that kind of thing. Instead of being like, people think of cactuses and they think of the fucking taco time sign. And no, like cactuses that are just like a bunch of like spikes coming out that have tiny little flowers at the top. And like, of course, you got your button cactuses that get about yaw big. I wanted to see the bloom, and I've been through there in the middle of summer. And by the way, not an area you'd want to blow a tire. Always pack extra water in your truck, your rig or whatever. But yeah, it's a weird kind of cool area, and a lot of America, in my opinion, is that way. There's like, it's kind of funny when people talk about, well, go all over the world. I mean, the world is great, don't get me wrong, but don't shortchange the country. If you live in one of these big ass countries, like if you live in Europe, there's probably a lot of Europe you could visit and see. If you live in, Russia, fuck, there's so much of Russia, assuming you can go to it. The same thing with like Canada. Like, I actually would like to see Canada at some point. Not that, I think their politics are shit, but I've heard the legends of, if you are trying to, go up to Alaska and you're a fisherman and you take the Alaskan highway, you won't make it the first year because they say there's so many lakes, rivers, and streams along the way. And as a trucker, I've seen a whole lot of lower 48. Like Maine, I haven't been to Maine. There might be like the Rhode Island, never been there. I've been to New York. But there's just so much of it. It's so vast and beautiful that it's kind of like when people talk about, well, why would you want to do the whole driving or trucking or this type of thing? I'm like, well, why would you want to go to work to do the same thing every day? Like, I get it if you're a homebody, you have your hometown person and all that, but you can go party in your hometown and still explore the whole fucking country. And I know my people's way of life will come to an end eventually. Eventually it'll just be van lifers, and travelers, RV people, boondockers. But it's still one of those few industries where, for the time being, you can make a fucking mountain of money driving a truck, and you get to see the whole goddamn country. And that's the reason I prefer it, because it's like, I'm a natural drifter. So the weirdness of like the wastelands, the deserts, the forests, even the places that are frozen always appeal to me. And I've been all over the goddamn place. I actually have to look at places and go, oh yeah, that road, that place where I saw that when I was driving through and there was an actual encounter with an Amish person or a Mennonite or whatever they are, with the horse and buggy in the middle of a little town. And I'm like, holy shit, there's one of them guys. But anyways, that's just kind of a story from some of my travels. Jeez,